Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 15, Episode 51. Please stay Brian. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Wednesday, Steelers Nation, as we barrel on ahead to week number 11 in the start of AFC North play against the Baltimore Ravens. So that'll be, again, one of the marquee matchups of the week, as it was last week, Pittsburgh and Washington, but this one cranked up all the more for this AFC North rivalry renewed. Dave, how you doing?
Happy Wednesday. It's Ravens week. It's AFC Gauntlet, start of the AFC North Gauntlet. Going to be a fun week coming off of an exciting, thrilling game to go back through again and watch, and got to dive a lot deeper into the All-22. I know you did as well. And Mike Tomlin presser on Tuesday. So we got a couple of roster moves, a little bit to talk about today, don't we?
Yeah, let's start there with some of the housekeeping and some of the practice squad moves. Pittsburgh has made nothing impacting the 53-man roster yet. The team doing some shuffling on Tuesday, signing wide receiver / return man Jamal Agnew to the practice squad, also bringing back running back Jonathan Ward, who has been on the roster, the practice squad of 53, essentially throughout the entire season. Was released earlier this week as that running back room got healthy, actually released on Saturday before the Commanders game, and then circling back to the practice squad to make room on the practice squad team, releasing a pair of players in wide receiver Lance McCutcheon, who got signed to the practice squad a couple weeks back, and also John LeGlue, who got signed shortly after roster cutdowns back at the start of the season. The O-line, just having enough health overall to allow LeGlue to be released.
I guess with Calvin Austin a little bit banged up, maybe they were wanting a kind of a return guy to look at to give him some looks or something. I would imagine, right?
Yeah. Tomlin said that Austin, should be good to go, but they'd worked Agnew out a couple of weeks ago anyway, so it was kind of already on speed dial. He's really known for his return ability, coming out of San Diego, I think it was, like not San Diego State, but actual San Diego, I think FCS school there, and he's had a lot of success. It was with Detroit, Jacksonville, and they're technically a receiver, but primarily a return man, so probably just giving them some depth and some health to get through practice.
All right, and should we go into kind of the injuries and what Mike Tomlin had to say about the overall health of the team next year, or do you have anything else to add on any of the roster moves here?
Well, just a quick note for the housekeeping. Pittsburgh brought in a couple of DBs for a workout on Tuesday or Monday or Tuesday. I forget the official date that occurred, but earlier this week, and one of them was a familiar name, and Eric Rowe, who was signed midseason last year when Pittsburgh had that just rash of safety injuries and the DeMonte Casey suspension, and Rowe ended up being a really important piece in that stretch run for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Neither him or the other safety worked out. Marquise Blair has been signed, but interesting to note that Rowe getting a second look from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I guess just checking up on the health of him. He can never have the Rolodex too full and those kind of things, but it was interesting to see Rowe's name pop back up on that thing, and obviously the two sides have familiarity with each other from all the time that he was with the team last year.
And surprisingly, to me at least, Rodney Williams has not come back to the practice squad, and Terrell Edmonds remains a free agent after being released on Saturday. Two guys that I thought might have pretty quick returns to the practice squad to give them some depth after being on the 53. Maybe they come back at some later point. I really thought for sure Williams was a slam dunk to make it because they like him, capable special teamer that can kind of fill in if anyone else gets hurt, along the front lines of those core special team positions. So not sure what happened there. Don't know if he's weighing options, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I have a feeling maybe we haven't seen the last of either one of those two guys. Still got half a season to go here, and you never know how injuries are going to impact things. And obviously, Rodney Williams a stronger special teams guy than anything, so he might have to wait for his next opportunity back in Pittsburgh here.
Speaking of injuries, let's walk through the injuries that Mike Tomlin talked about during his Tuesday press conference. Most notable is Alex Highsmith, who Tomlin called out this week for the Ravens game. A little bit later in the day, Highsmith's father, Sam, posted it was a low ankle sprain, no broken bones, possibly out 2 to 3 games. That tracks with prior reporting from Jerry Dulac earlier in the week. So no Highsmith this week. As one outside linebacker exits, one should enter. Tomlin optimistic Nick Herbig will return after getting injured in week 5 against Dallas with a hamstring injury. So Tomlin wasn't entirely sure of snap counts or even a de facto starter, with Preston Smith also in the fold, but Herbig expected to play, and that'll help even out the loss of Alex Highsmith, who was playing some really good football before going down.
I was about to say, if you didn't hit on it first, I was going to. It's a shame Alex Highsmith missed the amount of games that he's missed this year, with the groin first, and then now obviously the ankle, because when he has been healthy and on the field, the pressure that he's providing, and obviously getting the lesser attention because TJ Watt on the other side there, he's really been impactful and easy to pick up on tape when he's been on the field. So it's just so unfortunate. It's such kind of a freak thing too, because he was, getting after the quarterback on that play and stepped on Jaden Daniels' foot, and it's a wonder he didn't snap his ankle. The different angles that you look at that, but I guess the good, obviously the good thing is it's as his dad said, it's not broken, but you can definitely understand why he was on crutches after the game and why it sounds like it's going to be a couple of weeks with him. But you can't help but thinking back of the perfect timing. That's why you're never deep enough, right? You can never be deep enough. And anytime that you hear them talk about, we're just trying to add to the bottom end of the roster and make us as deep as possible. You look back at the Preston Smith, trading for him, and then he even has to go out and play, 23, 25, whatever snaps it was in this game against Washington. Obviously, you have Herbig, who, Mike Tomlin, in so many words, says, we got to see him get on the boat or have to see him on the boat to see where he's at from a health standpoint. So hopefully there's no relapse or moving backwards for Herbig coming off of that hamstring injury this week. But I would kind of imagine you might see, I don't know, half and half or maybe lean a little bit heavier on Preston Smith in this game against the Ravens, especially with this being a run-centric offense, and especially with Preston Smith and how well he's a better. He can still get after the quarterback, but he's still a very good run defender, and I think that will be paramount that they'll need out of this game, as opposed to Herbig. And look, you can definitely get Herbig in there on on obvious pass rush situations, because he has shown, obviously before going down injured, that he can still get out to the quarterback as well too. So just the perfect timing of the Preston Smith ad, coinciding with Alex Highsmith going down, and then return of Herbig on top of it. So hopefully, and then you still got Jeremiah Moon to pick up whatever leftover snaps that you might have on top of it there. So things could be worse, I guess.
Yeah, you need a guy like Preston Smith for this game, a big edge defender. Herbig has proven he can certainly punch above his weight and play the run, but to have that depth, because I would say, and we talked about that when the trade happened for Smith, there was a surprise, but a good one, in that Pittsburgh needs that kind of depth. They really don't have a good way to work around when they suffer outside linebacker injuries. I think they can manage injuries elsewhere better. At corner and the secondary, they can mask coverages and they can play a little bit looser, a little more conservatively, and they can get by. Last year showed that. At running back, they can put more on Najee Harris when Warren and Patterson are dinged up and dealing with injuries. At outside backer, there's really not a great way to scheme around that. They just fall flat when they're hurt, and then when they lose TJ Watt, or when other guys are out and Watt gets all the attention. There's no counterweight to that, way that Alex Highsmith can take advantage of those one-on-one reps the way that he does. So really important to have quality depth there. It's been, I think, a mission of Omar Khan since he's become GM, by doing things like drafting Herbig and claiming Moon off of waivers and trading for Preston Smith at the deadline, being proactive in that approach. And that's really come in handy, especially with the Highsmith injury.
All right, and it sounds like some of these other guys that are dinged up have a pretty good chance of being there on Sunday against the Ravens.
Yep, Najee Harris should play, which is no surprise. Never missed a game in his career, and of course, finished out the Commanders game. Deontay Johnson sounds like he's going to be a go with that hamstring injury, and that was the one I wasn't really sure of when it happened in game. And he left to not finish out the Commanders game. Didn't know his status, but Tomlin seemed optimistic that he may be limited early in the week. Would not be a surprise there. But Tomlin seemed to be indicating that he expects Jackson to suit up against Baltimore, which will be important.
Yeah, and same with Calvin Austin the third as well too. Sounds like Mike Tomlin said he could be limited to start of the week, but he didn't sound too overly concerned about having several of those others dinged up guys. But we'll first injury report of week 11 will come out later on this afternoon. He also talked about. He talked about this last week, I think, as well, too, about Corey Trice. So maybe here during this show, we'll get some sort of word of Corey Trice and having his window open. Is there anybody else in their window right now?
No, nobody who's had the window open that could be activated since Medikevich and Skoranek were last week. I mean, there are technically guys like Logan Lee that could, in theory, have their window open. I don't expect that. And I think Roman Wilson is still, don't have the exact math, but probably another week or two out before he being eligible to have that window activated. And there's no guarantee it would be at first opportunity.
All right. So if we get any word today, it would probably be Corey Trice having his 21-day window open, and then we'll see where it goes from there the rest of the week.
Right. What else from Mike Tomlin? I don't know if there was anything else too striking. I think the most headliney thing from maybe a local national media perspective was his commentary about Deontay Johnson now in Baltimore. And Tomlin asked about the threat of Deontay Johnson. Are they preparing for him and his return to Pittsburgh? And Tomlin said that basically there's other guys to worry about that have more significant roles. Said there's not a lot of video on Deontay Johnson, who has only one catch for 6 yards in his 2 games with Baltimore, and didn't explicitly say it, but said he focused on guys like Zay Flowers and the tight ends and Rashad Bateman, and has not focused too much on Baltimore having a former Steeler in Deontay Johnson.
Did you take that as, do you think there was any, people saying blasted Deontay, or was this just because he even started his response? To be honest with you, I hadn't even thought a lot about it. Did you take that as any sort of a slight?
I know the interpretation.
Is it threefold? Is it 14-fold? Is it twofold? You know what I'm saying?
I think it was just a very immediate, honest answer from Mike Tomlin. I don't think it was intended to be this crazy dig at Deontay. I think it was just truly, I just hadn't thought about it too much because he hasn't played a whole lot for Baltimore. I do think, though, that he could see that role increase. John Harbaugh talked about that his role may increase. Deontay Johnson's this week, and this is a guy that got traded over midseason and then had a quick turnaround from his first game to that Thursday game against the Bengals. So there really was no time for him to practice and get an extra full week in with the team. This is kind of been like his first full week not being traded and not having that short turnaround Sunday to Thursday game. And so obviously you're worried about Flowers and other guys more, but I do think Deontay could have a bigger presence in this contest.
Yeah, and he's still trying to find, I think even there's a quote from him from the last couple of days saying how he's still trying to, integrate himself and find his role in the offense.
Which makes sense because he still just got there. So we'll see. I understand the interpretation of it being a slight, and the normally give you your flowers. Mike Tomlin didn't really quite take that angle or approach with Diontae, but I just think it was an honest, off the cuff, immediate reaction from Tomlin. Probably not as big a story as some have made it out to be.
Yeah, I agree.
What else from Tomlin in this presser? I don't know if there was a ton else really notable. Anything stick out to you, Dave?
He was asked about Joey Porter Jr., obviously coming off of not his best game, without a doubt, the penalties that he had. And asked specifically if there is a message to Joey Porter this week. He says, I don't know that it is a message. We're always working to be clean. Last week was last week. He's done an awesome job for the totality of the season. So it usually takes two to make a pattern for me before I get active. And so I'm not going to overreact to last week. So it sounds like, and look, he had a tough matchup for a lot of time too, when you're on arguably one of the league's top 10 wide receivers or so, and Terry McLaurin. And also, look, one of the things, obviously, with Joey Porter coming out of college was the pass interferences, the clutching and the grabbing. Had a couple of flags in this game, and it's no wonder he was asked about the question, or asked the question that he was asked in this game. But Mike Tomlin doesn't seem overly concerned about this right now until we see more of a multi-game pattern.
Yeah, it was certainly, and we didn't probably talk about it as much as we should have on Monday's show, but it was a really poor game for Joey Porter Jr. Multiple penalties, giving up a couple of catches, the one long ball on the sideline to McLaurin, the one glance route, which I put a little bit less on Porter, that long catch and 54-yard run that McLaurin had. But, no two ways about it, a really poor game from Porter. And got to play cleaner than that. He was in good position on some of those reps. It's not like he's getting beat and grabbing to slow the guy down out of desperation. He's in good position on the one goal line fade where he just mugged the dude, on the one sideline throw down the right side. Thought he was in good position, didn't have to pull and tug and slow him down the way that he did. So just has to know when you're in phase and you're in a good spot, play a little bit cleaner, and the refs will probably give you that leeway.
Yeah, I don't know about you. I didn't think the secondary as a whole had a super great game, especially in some of the man coverage type. Well, I mean, they've got busted on a couple of those cover threes as well, too. One down the middle of the right seam against a cover three. Washington had a couple of drops, couple of missed connections. The rush in coverage overall, I didn't feel went hand in hand. Deontay Jackson's played better ball for this team. He seems to be going through a bit of it right now. Cameron Sutton, it seemed like, ran away from a couple of times in some man situations, as did Beanie. I think the overarching kind of takeaway, though, was kind of the tone the Steelers set early with the pass rush. It just felt like the timing, especially in the first, quarter and a half of this thing for Jaden Daniels was off. It felt like he was his timing was way off. Now they seem to get a little bit more rhythm in the second half, but I just didn't get the feel that the secondary had a overly great game, and it felt like it could have been a little bit, obviously with the penalties thrown in there and all like that, but it felt like it could have been a little bit worse too had Washington connected on a couple of those throws.
Think it could have been a lot worse. Talk about, there was the Ertz drop. There were at least two over routes that were just missed, both against Cam Sutton. That if they're caught, if they're thrown accurately and connect, they're hitting for 20, 30 plus yard plays, and who knows where they go from there. So I think there was more on Pittsburgh's secondary in this game. They played a lot more man coverage than they typically have. They blitzed more. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. So there was certainly more put on the secondary. And for guys like Cam Sutton, their first game back, knocking off the rust, having some sub package and situational type of roles, that can be difficult. But yeah, I agree. I don't think the secondary really played all that well. And Washington, like I said, Monday, probably really kicking themselves for some clear missed opportunities.
Yeah, I agree. And then, you roll back to kind of what you can say after every game, man. You boil it down to about 4 or 5 plays on each side of the football, where if teams make those plays, it can oftentimes decide the outcome. And how big was that 4th down stop, by KZ and Minka Fitzpatrick there at the end, keeping them short on 4th down. And as you've stated, I think it's starting to get highlighted a little. I think Ben Fennell even highlighted it this morning, that play that, and I think Jay Gruden even highlighted it the last 24 hours, the play Keanu Benton made on Jaden Daniels, on one of those runs up the middle there. That if he doesn't get him, and you look at the couple of offensive linemen out in front there, that probably goes for 10, 12, 14, 18, whatever yards, and then
Hmm.
they're in field goal range, and then obviously not facing the fourth and long that they faced, and all like that. So that a big sequence of plays there in that final possession against the against Washington that really played a huge, obviously the getting them to jump off sides, the last key offensive play of the game. But leading up to that point, the plays that the Steelers defense made were ended up really deciding the football game.
Yeah, talk about all the plays that were made in the final 5 minutes. They were essentially all made by Pittsburgh, whether it was that, and you pointed this out, and it's a really good call by you on Monday, that second and 16, 13-yard completion to Calvin Austin, that scramble drill, that was huge. And then, of course, the game winner to Mike Williams, and then the play by Benton, even the next play by TJ Watt to get pressure and, force an incompletion, the fourth down stop, and then the 4th and 1 hard count that got Washington to jump. All the significant plays in the final 5 minutes were made by Pittsburgh, and that's why they won this game.
Yeah. Mike Tomlin, he did kind of send a little bit of a message, I guess, when asked about the fake punt, and was asked if that was kind of an attitude setter because of how early it came in the game and where it came on the football field. And he says, "No, I was just trying to get a first down." But sidebar, yes, because we're just not going to allow people to do unorthodox and potentially unsound things against us. He goes on to say, "I'm not going to allow people to overstress our punt protection unit by leaving people uncovered. We've got people that are capable of throwing and catching the football. We don't view it as a gadget or a trick play, to be quite honest with you. That discussion and that work didn't just start last week in preparation for Washington. It's what we do. It's steeped in our culture. We've been working that since the spring. And so our attitude about it is probably a little bit different than you might think because of that." He says, "We're not hoping or wishing. There's nothing mystical. This is routine for us. This is base pass and running play or base defense stuff for us. We've got that level of comfort in it. But all of that being said, we didn't execute that in the moment, and that's why I took responsibility for it." So a little bit of a explanation of why he did it, and kind of a message saying we're not going to be, have people do unorthodox or potentially unsound. What a wordsmith, but I found that not overly important, but just entertaining, I guess.
Yeah, I think we've talked about as much as we can talk about the fake punt, but I like the attitude from Tomlin of, yeah, we're not going to let teams just do these things and be able to leave our gunners uncovered without paying a price or a consequence to that. So I do like the swagger, the mentality there. Again, I fully support the fake punt. It was the right look. They saw it on tape. They prepared for it. Just didn't make the play. Pierre didn't make the catch. It sucks, but I think the process was still sound.
I do as well too. He was also asked about Mike Williams potentially getting a larger workload moving forward. He says, "I think that'll be continual, and I think it's reasonable to expect his workload to increase. The rate in which it increases and all those things will be determined by factors I really don't have the answers to. I'm still getting to know him and how he learns, and specifically the detailed component of his skill set in terms of how to best utilize it and positioning to help us. And so we'll be evolving in that way." He goes on to say, same goes for a guy like Preston Smith, less so with a guy like Cam Sutton because we have shared experience with him in the past. And I think even this morning, I mean, you look back, he played what, 9 snaps, Mike Williams did in this game. We kind of knew it would be muted with him because of him being new to the team and having to catch the moving train. Probably would have played 7 or 6 snaps if not for Calvin Austin getting banged up when he did in the game. So, it's just one of those things where he's going to have to try to catch up as soon as possible. And you had a good clip of that. I think of him talking to Darnell Wash, or no,
Yeah, don't know.
was it Darnell?
Mm-hmm.
The couple plays before the touchdown.
Yeah, the play before the game-winning touchdown from Mike Williams, who, like you said, replacing Calvin Austin, really was out there running plays he didn't fully know because obviously he just got traded here, just had 3 practices and a walkthrough with the team. And Russell Wilson makes a check, and you can see Williams and Washington kind of communicate, and I think Williams kind of knows what the check is, but is still checking with Washington, and they're going back and forth, and Darnold's pointing to him and then shaking his head like, yes, that's the call, that's the route, do this, and that was the play before the touchdown. So just a funny moment there for a guy trying to catch a moving train. But I give and Preston Smith a lot of credit for just being ready and being ready to meet the moment. It's my terrible take today, where I just talk about the professionalism those guys have shown to be ready. And when their numbers call, both in the fourth quarter, Smith out there replacing Highsmith on that last drive, Williams replacing Austin on that, last, full drive, playing from behind to gain the lead there. Big time stuff there from two veterans who were able to make it work.
Yep, I agree. And now we'll see. I think another thing, was it you or Matthew Marksey pointed out, we're not seeing the snap. What did Mike Tomlin call it with George Pickens? The snap management.
Yeah, right. I still think some of that is overblown. What was I looked at his snap counts. They're up a little bit, but what is he at? Matthew wrote about it yesterday, I think it was. He came in at 80% against the Giants, 81% against the Commanders, 79% against the Jets. I mean, in week 2, he was at 77%. And in week 4, he was 86%. I mean, there were the couple of games there where it was lower and the whole controversy. I don't know. I still think people have made too much out of it, but Pickens is not playing a more consistent, higher amount of snaps. That is fair.
All right.
I was going to point out, and I typically don't take a lot of inventory in the opposing, team comments from Tomlin. They're all well informed, and they're all, make everyone sound like they're the greatest team ever, and that's all well and good. But I thought it was interesting, and I think one big talking point discussion we'll have on Friday's show previewing the Ravens is, how do you handle that run game element from Baltimore? I thought Pittsburgh did a great job against Jayden Daniels in terms of containing Daniel's mobility, holding him to a season low 5 yards. Got a video breakdown on that this morning with the mesh charge and different things they did. And the question is, can you do that same thing against Baltimore? You can contain Lamar Jackson, make sure he can't run, but then do you let Derrick Henry sort of run wild? And there was a question similar to that to Tomlin, and he says, quote, I acknowledge that there's a balance to be struck there. We'll try to strike it from a planning standpoint, but I really feel like that is a field thing. I think you'll discover that in stadium. So Pittsburgh saying that we'll kind of have to play it by ear in terms of how exactly we decide to play Baltimore and weigh that risk reward of taking away Lamar, but potentially opening up Derrick Henry. I think how Pittsburgh tries to manage and juggle all those competing factors will be a real sticking point of this game.
And in this game against Washington, as you pointed out, they do everything in their power to not let the athleticism of Jayden Daniels impact the game to the point where they were wanting him to hand the football off to the running backs. And while their running backs did hit a couple of decent runs, they were okay with taking their chances of stopping the Washington running backs in lieu of having Jayden. Now there was obviously the one where Jayden got to the outside, but Patrick Queen tracked him down, and for a 4-yard gain or whatever that was an incredible play on the defensive side of the ball, because if he breaks contain and gets outside and Queen doesn't get there, that probably goes for a lot, or does go for a lot longer than it actually did. And I don't know about you. I just, it felt like the Washington running game, and maybe it was perhaps because of the banged up tackles, and didn't they lose their center at one point? Did the starting center come back in after he left?
I don't even remember him getting hurt.
I thought there was something about their center. Let me look at I meant to look at that already. To look at the snap count of the Washington center. I'm mad I didn't go back and look at that. I meant to.
I may have missed it.
Who was their starting center? Biadez. He missed like 5 snaps in this game, so he did come back in.
Okay.
But there was a portion that he was out. Maybe it was one series or something like that Biadez was out. But that, and obviously we talked about them not having their top tackles, and ahead of the game we talked about how all the eye candy and the moving of the guards, which they did try to do some obviously in this game. Their offense just felt a lot more clunkier as far as their running game went. But back to the point was, and the main focus of your video and what we talked about coming out of the game, and even Jaden Daniels, I think, said this yesterday, that the Steelers did such a good job in rush lane integrity and just really overall containing him, and to limit that guy to what they did on the ground while also limiting the entire running game to 60 something yards was paramount. And then when you look ahead now to what Mike Tomlin said about the Ravens, and looking ahead to the Ravens specifically, I mean, you got a different animal over there in Derrick Henry, and they're. And I think, as far as kind of like the zone read stuff and all with Baltimore, there was a point kind of, I think more so earlier in the season where we saw a little bit more out of that, out of Lamar Jackson. I don't know how banged up technically he is, because that guy does take a lot of shots and all, but they're not afraid to run that, but they'll if you gladly give them the running game, to see what they can do with it, they will gladly take it with a guy like Derrick Henry. And this is obviously the first time the Steelers will see Derrick Henry in a Ravens uniform. And Mike Tomlin went out of his way to say, look, this is a dangerous guy, that he can go 80 on you on any given snap. He can wear you down. We've seen the Steelers struggle at times against running games. Go back a couple of games ago against the Giants there. And then when you factor that in, that Lamar Jackson is, a runner that you have to account for as well too. They have their hands full, and in so many words, that's what Mike Tomlin is obviously saying when it comes to facing the Ravens.
Yeah, Dave, that's going to be the real challenge, just handling, because again, typically in the past, even against Baltimore, Tomlin's talked about, we're going to allow the running back to have more success to take away Lamar. That's why Gus Edwards has had some good games. It's why J.K. Dobbins, whenever he was in Baltimore, had some successful games. At least part of the reason. Do you make that same calculation against a top two running back in football and Derrick Henry? It's a tougher trade-off. So really want to see the game plan. I want to see the wrinkles. And just kind of a sidebar off of that, Arthur Villette, the former Steeler, talking with the media yesterday and said, we know exactly how Pittsburgh's going to play Lamar, and talked about the mesh charge and having one for the quarterback and one for the back. And so if you're Pittsburgh, do you do the thing that worked against Washington and the things that have generally slowed down Lamar in the past, or do you try to have a new game plan knowing that Baltimore kind of knows your script and you just saw it against Washington the week before? That cat and mouse game will be really, I think, fun to watch come Sunday.
It's a slippery slope, isn't it? And look, Arthur Millette didn't tell us anything new. You've been talking about the mesh charge for like 4 years, I think, every time before this. But and look, if you go back to that one game last year, I mean, Lamar had a good game. They just dropped so many damn passes. You remember that meeting last year where
Flowers had one downfield over the middle.
I mean, they had something like, I don't know, 5, 6 something passes. It felt like dropped in that game there, and Lamar played. And look, I mean, Lamar's obviously developed as a passer, and then you add in, I mean, they have obviously gotten blistered by guys like Gus Edwards, as you said, and who else have been some of the backs over the years that have
Dobbins has had a lot of success.
Dobbins gashed him and all like that, but Derrick, the thing. And then you even roll back to kind of this most recent game against the Bengals that they had. The Ravens don't do them themselves any justice when they get away from using Derrick Henry early in the game, because what they want to do is they want to get you in mid third quarter, fourth quarter action where you're tired of tackling that guy. And that's when their running game really, not that it doesn't come alive before that, but it really comes alive. And obviously at any point we've seen, Derrick go, 80 yards there. So it is a slippery slope of, do you continue, or do you almost dare Lamar say, okay, we're going to focus on this time on assuming that you're going to hand the ball off, and if you get around the end on us, we'll take our chances on that. You're going to
Right.
have to, because you're going to have to make sure there's going to be some crack and replace type situations that you're probably going to get into. Obviously, with your ends crashing down. I think one good thing, though, is you've got a guy, he's not as obviously athletic, but Preston Smith has seen a lot of this. You go back to even some of the tape of most recent stuff against Jalen Hurts and the Eagles and kind of containing that. So I don't know. Maybe the best way is probably just not be so predictable on a down by down basis of when you're going to mesh charge Lamar Jackson, and just have them try to play the guessing game and then hope you guess right more times than not.
Yeah, there's multiple things you can do. And to be fair, Pittsburgh, even in the Washington game, did more than just mesh charge. They did some exchanges and slants and scrapes, and you're going to see all those types of things against Baltimore. But what it comes down to is, who do you consider to be the most dangerous runner? In most cases, facing Baltimore in past years, that was Lamar or whoever the replacement quarterback and RG3 type was. In this situation, who's the more dangerous runner, Derrick Henry or Lamar Jackson? You may make that calculation and say Henry's the more dangerous guy. We'll take our chances with Lamar. Let's minimize Derrick Henry in this one, because you're right. I mean, I've gone through an early jump start on my Ravens tape. They seem to be running less zone read than they have in the past. It's really only been used in situational ball, like third and short, got to have it type situations. That's when they really kind of run the true zone read option there for Lamar, and that may be related to the knee injury that he's been battling, or just because Henry is just running the ball so darn well. So it'll be one of those games within the game that we'll be watching for, especially on the All-22 next week.
The problem is both the answer to the question is yes,
Right.
because both those guys can kill you on the ground. And what Lamar on the injury report, like back, and I mean,
I think it's a knee. He's got some stuff. Yeah.
But I'll tell you this: every opportunity that you get to have a clean shot on him, you got to take it. And then, I mean, the whole element of the run game, and obviously needs to be shut down. But within that, we've seen, and like I said, even roll back to last year's game with Lamar, had they not dropped those passes and all the tight end usage. I mean, they get these guys out of nowhere, likely, and you got Andrews, and who's that other tight end that they have over there?
Charlie Kolar.
Yeah, I mean they are multiple.
Yeah, and they're passing the ball well. Lamar has 24 touchdowns, same number he had all of last year. So the passing game is certainly working. But anyway, we'll save a lot of this for the Ravens recap and preview.
Bateman's very underrated with his separation. I mean, they just got so many weapons over there.
They do be a big challenge for sure. All right, Dave, what else from Tomlin? Was there any other notable things from his presser, any other quotes, comments that caught your attention?
Asked about the divisional games lining up where they are and how maybe it ends up being a benefit for the team. He says, I don't care. I play them whenever they schedule us. We have no control over the schedule. Our goal is to beat everybody, but specifically week to week, we get singly focused on this week's opponent, blah, blah, blah. Not earth shattering, but typical Tomlin. But I think, he talked at length, obviously, in the opening about the Ravens, and then got questions about Lamar Jackson, and the rivalry, and how going to show the team some Isaac Redman tape this week.
Yeah, I love me an Isaac Redman reference, and that point was to say that yes, this game will be focused on the stars, Lamar and Watt and Hayward, etc. But a lot of times the unsung heroes end up defining the game the way that Isaac Redman did in that 2010 game, where after that Troy forced fumble that Lamar Woodley recovers, Redman catches the game-winning touchdown pass on a play in which he was not supposed to even be out there. Kirby Wilson sent out the wrong running back, and Redman made it work, and Pittsburgh wins the game. So you think about him. I went through, remember Robert Spillane, one of his breakout games was a pick six to Lamar Jackson and a big win over them. Eli Rogers, Cameron Kelly had a pick against Baltimore way back when. So this game is about the stars, sure, but it's also about a whole team effort, and going to need some probably lesser known guys to make big plays as well.
All right. I think that's all that struck me about Mike Tomlin.
All right, let's go to the All-22 review of the Steelers Commanders game. Let's start with the Pittsburgh offense in this one. Dave, what were your big takeaways, impressions after getting a fine-tooth comb through the tape?
I think Zach Frazier played a better game on All-22 than what two run-throughs of the TV tape showed. Fantastic reach blocks in this game by him. Good second level stuff. I think you even pointed out one of him staying out on a block on a screen and riding that. Good to have him obviously back for this game. Isaac Sayamalo, I thought, played a good game. The running
But
game,
Dan Moore, I
yeah,
thought had a great
yeah,
game.
Dan Moore had a good game. Broderick, obviously, the highlight of the week is zero pressures, I think, allowed overall with him. It still was inconsistent enough, kind of. I found myself wondering what the running game would have been like in later in the second half had the Steelers not been playing from behind, because it felt like they were close to popping a few of these, and normally we have seen them do this later in games where teams down with the running game and all. And I kind of wonder, had they been able to stay with the running game a little bit more later in the game, if they would have been able to pop some. I thought Jaylen Warren looks like he's back now from that hamstring that stuck out. A couple of cuts that he made on a couple of those left side runs there. Not a huge fan of pulling. I love pulling offensive linemen. Not a fan of those deep down low in red zone, but obviously that worked out with the power running of Mason McCormick pulling. That was blocked. I mean, Mason McCormick really didn't even have to factor into that play too terribly much, the way that thing kind of split open there. I guess my main takeaway was Russell Wilson probably missed a couple of things that I think he should have hit. There was we talked about this pulling out, got his foot stepped on, didn't really even see Pat Freiermuth on that one. There was
Was that why leak? Was that why leak? I think like Darnell. That was the first read there. Darnell trying to sneak out backside. He got covered,
Yeah.
and I think that But I watched that one that you mentioned. Yeah, Freiermuth was wide open.
Yeah, but I think the whole timing was off on that, and I think immediately when he came out, he had given up on the front side there and was going backside there. So I mean, that's forgivable. There was another one against kind of a cover three, I think, situation where he ended up, I think, checking the ball down to Jaylen Warren over the middle there, where you have Michael Pruitt had split the cover three that I think he missed. Obviously, there were a couple of the one throw away to Freiermuth that we talked about on the one that he missed. Another escape pressure throwaway. The
one that I ding him for was that early slant flat combination on third down. It wasn't a good yak ball where Pickens had to stop for it, and the DB was able to make the tackle. And they hit that again later in the game when they got him on the run, and Pickens converted. But that was one throw that I thought Wilson could have been better at.
I think the sad thing is or not sad, but the overarching thing is that you look at all of the incompletions, because obviously from a completion percentage standpoint, it was not great. You had a couple of those kind of slot fades that he missed that didn't get connected on. One to Jefferson, one, I think another one to Calvin Austin early. What I'm getting at here is he was 14 of 28, 50%. And unfortunately, you can remember a lot of these incompleted passes, couple of throwaways. One, the Pickens slipped over there towards the sideline. A couple of the slot fades missed. Trying to think what else was there.
It was a tight end screen to Darnell that was a little off kilter and incomplete.
Right. You just would have liked to seen a little bit more rhythm. And I think that's one of the things Mike Tomlin talked about earlier in the press conference was really in all three phases, they weren't rhythmic overall to start the game. Now, obviously, as the game went on, I thought Russell Wilson, what was he in the second half of this game? Let's
I don't have the
see.
exact stats. Probably better, I assume.
Yeah. It feels like a lot of the misses, a lot of the incompletions were early in this game. I think another thing that stuck out, man, when you go through the all-22 and you see all the patting of the heads and the checks and the kills and all like that, is how much command Russell Wilson really has over this offense right now. Uh, and the visible autonomy that he has within this. It feels like he's really, really comfortable in this offense. And, you go to the big play, obviously the touchdown to Mike Williams and having to coach that up real quick and deliver the ball. And, as we talked about, the other day, the level of the level of difficulty of that catch was unreal by Mike Williams. And I thought it was funny that Chris Long talked about this on his podcast too. That's a classic guy coming to a new team that coming off some criticism of not running a red line and all eyes on him. You had to wonder what's going through Mike Williams' head when that ball's up in the air in that situation, because it was ridiculously hard catch to make, and he's got to be thinking to himself, "Oh, I got to catch this thing. Don't f it up," as
Right.
Chris Long said. But it's just one of that play, the second down and long play to Calvin Austin. Those kind of key plays win games, and that's what ended up winning this game for the Steelers in the fourth quarter late. That, and then obviously the cadence to getting them jump on the final key offensive play of the game.
And apparently, the guy that jumped, Johnny Newton, the rookie second round pick of the Commanders, had said post game that he had a tell on Zach Frazier that caused him to jump. That's why he jumped. He thought he saw something that could get him to anticipate the snap count. Of course, there is no tell when there is no play, and Pittsburgh did not call a play there. It was totally designed to be a hard count, try to get him to jump. If not, then either take the 5 yards on the penalty or call a timeout. So that's the story there. I don't know exactly.
Is it a tell though? If you change the tell and you make the biggest play in the game, is it really a tell?
I don't know. Apparently, he saw something that was his interpretation. I don't even know what the tell might have been, but if there's no play, then there really can't be a tell of when the ball is going to get snapped. That's all I know on that
Right.
one. And I took a screenshot. I know you had the all-22 clip of the reaction after, but I took a screenshot of just like the jubilation of the Steelers with Johnny Newton with his hands over his face, and like that's gonna become my new like wallpaper on my phone, just because it's such a just a crazy moment there. And I love to see all the guys celebrate. I mean, I literally in my notes as I'm writing down that fourth down hard count, I just wrote the word joy just to see how happy everybody was for that play. Just really, really fun moment there for Pittsburgh.
I talked about the run game, and I mean, this is a team that still rushed for 140 yards in this game. So,
If that's
where,
bad, yeah, we'll take it.
yeah, if that's awful, I mean, you obviously didn't have any explosive runs. Longest run was what, 12 yards by Jalen Warren, but they were getting successful, per se runs, I guess, overall. Najee Harris obviously didn't have a great game, 2.5 yards per carry, if you're looking at from that standpoint. But I just, it could, I do wonder how much better it could have been had they been playing with the lead later in the game.
Or just, and this is so often the case in any game where the run doesn't hit quite the way you want to. There are so many small moments. The number of times I've written in my notes this year, crunch almost worked, but they just missed on this one block. They had a crunch run to Jalen Warren right side where Broderick just couldn't get the down block secured and de-tackled, was able to get off the block and make the play. If Broderick's able to make that block, that one hits for 20 plus yards. And that's been the story throughout the year. I thought Broderick had a good game overall, not trying to be too critical, but little things like that. There was another run left side. I think fourth quarter where Warren, there was a big hole. He stumbled, just lost his footing a little bit, and the D-tackle was able to close the gap before Warren could get through. So it is typically little things like that add up. It's funny. One of the biggest runs that Najee had was Darnell missed a check there was a play action call that Russ checked to a run, and Darnell didn't get the signal, so he's running his pass pattern, and it actually kind of worked because it took away the two Commanders defenders because they thought it was a pass key too, and it kind of opened the lane for Najee Harris, and so just kind of funny to see how all those things work out. I don't know what was in Mike Williams' head during that catch. I know what was in his head after the catch, as he posted on Instagram. He had the clip of the touchdown there, and in the comments, it was a green snake emoji with a hashtag redline. And for those who aren't terminally online like you and I are, redline is referring to the criticism that Aaron Rodgers gave to him in that Buffalo Bills game when Williams was a Jet, where he didn't run the red line down that middle point between the sideline and the numbers, caused an interception. The game was lost because of that. And the green snake emoji looks like a little jab at one green New York Jets quarterback. So little subtle dig there from Mike Williams, it felt like.
As I said the other day, boy, Mike Williams probably thinking his lucky stars he's out of New York at this point, especially with the way the Jets continue to play. I think underperforming. But what does Mike Tomlin say? You are what your record says you are, right? And he's obviously glad to be in Pittsburgh now at this point, and it'll be interesting to see how he can help this team moving forward.
And as Tomlin says, we don't care how you got here. You're here. That's all that matters. And Mike Williams making some plays in his Pittsburgh Steelers debut. Anything else here from the offense? I thought Dan Moore had a really good game in pass pro. He's gotten so comfortable with his punches. I think he's handling bull rushes, which was always his Achilles heel, better. Of course, I really want to see him against Myles Garrett in 2 weeks from now. And then 2 weeks after that, the week 12 and 14 games against the Browns. That's going to be a huge, huge challenge. You would expect Moore to have some struggles, but if he can even look decent against Garrett, then you're really talking about a guy that's having a fantastic season. And I know people will say, oh, Garrett hasn't had sacks against Moore in the past. Garrett's schooled Dan Moore in basically every game they've gone against each other. I know the stats don't tell that story, but if you just watch the reps, it's no shame on Moore. It's just Garrett's a great player, but that'll be a really good way to kind of gauge where Dan Moore is at.
I like the flow of the play calling and all. I think Arthur Smith continues to do a good job on that. Obviously, those tosses, they're going to hit one of those one of these times. We're going to say, well, they finally hit one of those. But and then some of these second and long runs, I'm not a huge fan of. But like I said, if Russell Wilson completes a higher percentage of his passes in this game, it probably changes the complexion of this thing. Obviously, the Jaylen Warren fumble deep down low could have been, we could still be talking about that right now at this point.
Yeah, if Pittsburgh loses that game, we're talking about the failed fake punt, and we're talking about the Warren fumble. But Pittsburgh able to, how many teams can overcome that kind of adversity of a failed fake punt in your own red zone, deep in your own territory, a fumble on the doorstep of the goal line with how much time was there left? 5, 6, 7 minutes to overcome those two things and to be able to rally is pretty impressive. For Washington to double dip with getting a touchdown end of the half and then started the third quarter. A lot of things on paper in this game told you that Washington should have won. They won the turnover battle, for example. They were, I think, perfect in the red zone. On paper, they should have been a Washington win, but Pittsburgh was able to dig deep, make those plays in the final 5 minutes, and come out on top.
Yep.
What else do I have? I'm trying to think if I had any other notes. Play action did not feel as effective in this game. I think Pittsburgh maybe got sacked twice off of play action. I thought Washington handled that well. Guys really didn't get open. They hit the one boot action on the second play of the game, which was the same look on the first play of the game. It was a run on the 1st and 10 and play action on the second play of the game to Darnell for a quick little gainer in the flat, but play action did not work as successfully against Washington.
Yeah, I would agree on that, but obviously you got to keep sticking with it.
Yeah, still going to keep rolling with it, but just wasn't quite as much of an asset as it was in the previous games. All right, Dave, flipping over to defense. I got a long video on the site today breaking down how Pittsburgh contained Jaden Daniels as a passer and in the design run game, and I think that was such a critical component of this game to really make sure that he could not impact the game with his legs. And so I thought Pittsburgh, they sent five or more rushers on 54% of the pass attempts for Washington. That's easily a season high. And some of that was to blitz to get home, but I think a lot of that was blitz to contain and plug up every gap and make sure that Daniels could not escape the pocket. I thought Pittsburgh was really good with their rush lane integrity, rushing smarter, containing him, and they just handled all that extremely well.
Yeah, and I think once again it set the tone kind of early on this thing. Based on it just felt like early on Jaden Daniels was kind of rushed.
Yeah, Washington could not really develop a flow. They punted on their first two attempts, their first two drives. They hadn't done that all season. Again, they punted 6 times overall in this game. They came into this game punting 19 times total on the season. So they just really weren't able to be as rhythmic as they were accustomed to.
All right.
Anything else defensively?
Just the coverage. Yeah, just the coverage.
Any positive stick out? What do you think about Cam Sutton's his Steelers re-debut, you could say?
Yeah, with Sutton, Mike Tomlin talked about this yesterday as well too, and thought it was fine and all like that. There were some instances in coverage I thought he could have been better, especially in man. I would think it's going to be interesting to see against the Ravens if they go after whoever's the slot guy in this. I wasn't as enthralled with Cam Sutton's performance as maybe Mike Tomlin was.
Yeah, he got away. Well, he got lucky in the sense of a couple of missed opportunities thrown his way that could have been big time completions. I thought the game plan was interesting. Pittsburgh, in their effort to slow down Daniels in the Washington run game, they ran a lot of wrinkles with Sutton, especially in the second half when Washington would run 3 receiver sets. Pittsburgh would often come out in what I'll call 3-4 nickel, where they have their base 3-4, their Okie front, 3 down linemen, 4 linebackers, but they would use 3 corners and 1 safety. They would take off Deshaun Elliott and put in his place Cam Sutton to play over the slot. And they used that a bunch of times in this game to try to have best of both worlds, defending the run while still having enough cover guys out there to defend those 3 receiver looks. So will that be something Pittsburgh uses against Baltimore? Potentially. So always cool to kind of see those wrinkles. Sutton's play seemed to be, not great, but it hasn't played football in a long time. And I think there's still some versatility and some flexibility that he offered in this game. I think already showed that.
Yep.
What else do I have? Preston Smith, I thought was a good debut. 21 snaps played on both sides, even some 1 snap as a D tackle in that 3 outside linebacker Bronco package, apparently they call it. He had a great hustle play on that screen we talked about Monday to save a touchdown, even though Washington did eventually score, had a good pass rush, didn't get a pressure, but I just thought it was a good, solid debut. Wasn't super flashy, but picked up some meaningful snaps, especially late in the game, hustled well, played the run well, had a couple of nice pass rush wins. Good start.
And he should obviously get more comfortable moving on in this thing too. And once again, I think the run defense is the biggest thing to look at with him moving forward. What'd you decide on that quote unquote sack or whatnot?
I think it should have gone to Benton. Did they not? They haven't changed that. I don't think, right? They have not updated.
Let me see
Who got credited for the sack there. I assume. I don't.
Smith's got it. Still
has it. Right. I don't know. It could have gone either way. Obviously it wasn't really a sack where somebody had this great pressure. All the linemen ran away. It was a dual screen. Washington was running. So I'm not even sure why Daniels tried to attempt to run with no one blocking. It was kind of a funky play, but either way, sack is a sack. We'll take it, but a good game for Preston Smith. And obviously his role should only expand with the Highsmith injury.
We talked about Queen's game, Elliott's game already. We talked about Porter. Man, I wish Keanu Benton do something other than that club over.
Yeah, I thought it was still a nice game for him. I thought he had a couple of, like we said, that open field tackle on the quarterback draw was absolutely huge in that one. It wasn't a bad game. He got washed a little bit against the run, but yeah, you're looking for that secondary move there. I thought he hustles well. I think Pittsburgh, and I'm going to try to do a compilation of this, just not for this game, but over the last several, they have defended the screen game really, really well. Running back screens, receiver tunnel screens. Washington ran 2 of them, even including that attempted throwback to Daniels in this game. Neither of those went anywhere. There were maybe two or three running back screens that got thrown in the dirt because Pittsburgh just read it so well. And that's been consistent throughout the last couple of games, not just the Washington win Sunday. So Pittsburgh is really keying in anticipating and playing the screen game very well.
All right, that's a good observation.
And I would just say last thing, wrote about this on Tuesday. Landon Roberts is really chipping into Peyton Wilson's playing time. You look at their nickel reps, the beginning of the year, it was very segmented. Patrick Queen was your every down guy. Roberts was your strict base 3-4 guy. Wilson was your strict nickel guy. He played every single nickel rep. You fast forward to the Washington game, they basically split nickel reps 50-50. And so we're seeing Roberts really have a bigger and bigger role defensively to, I think, because he's better against the run, he's better downhill, better between the tackles. And so Wilson's snap count is shrinking. I imagine that will, in a lot of ways, continue against Baltimore. It's not to say that Wilson has been bad. He's not been as good against the run, though, as Roberts, who's been exceptional. And I think Pittsburgh's really leaning on that, knowing they have to priority number one, stop the run.
Yeah, big week coming up for Patrick Queen, Landon Roberts, Deshaun Elliott down in the box. Certainly something to watch against this running game, and I'm with you. I think we're going to see probably a lot of base defense, a lot of Landon Roberts out there with Patrick Queen.
Right. All right. Anything else here? Any other thoughts, Dave, from this game? Offense, defense, special teams?
No, it was nice to see them not have to kick field goals, obviously. Ben Skoranek, fun to watch on special teams tape. Not too much, other than that.
All right, Dave, let's get to anything else here? Any other stories that we're missing last second? I think we've covered all the big things. We'll have injury report today. We'll have coordinators tomorrow. Russ will speak tomorrow. Anything else caught your eye?
No.
All right, let's get through some read emails and close out today's show.
All right, let me sort them out here real quick. Here we have from Jim Bendis, lack of burgundy color towels in the stands. He says, I have a good Washington Commanders friend who went to last week's game with the Steelers buddy. He told me about the time he made it into the stadium, they were not giving out those red towels. They ran out based on the picture in the stadium he sent me when he got in there. The stadium was partially filled, maybe a quarter filled. If that, so he got into the stadium in plenty of time to get one, at least you would think. In other words, he says he doesn't think that they brought enough, or they had purchased enough towels for the fans in that one.
Yeah, it felt like Pittsburgh really took that one over, and I guess the rationale or the thought, I saw one Washington beat guy say, well, because the tickets were sold before this year started, and fans didn't know how good Washington would be. That's why Steeler fans really pounced on tickets back when the schedule got announced in May. It'll be different next year. But either way, no matter how you want to spin it, Pittsburgh had a big presence in this one, and certainly a lot of times felt like a home game.
Brett Niles says, I had a question about the use of Peyton Wilson in this game. He talked on a podcast about Roberts essentially replacing Wilson's role. He says he has two questions. Is it fair to say that Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson have very similar strengths and weaknesses, specifically that they both play better in space and struggle taking on blocks or playing in the phone booth? Does that make it hard to pair those guys together long term? I would say the short answer to that's yes.
Yeah, I get the broad strokes of it. I mean, I don't think Queen has some work to do, but he's, I think much more adept at being able to play the run and use his hands better and work off of blocks a little more effectively than Peyton Wilson, who's a rookie and doesn't have great length. So, yeah, that's probably a good way to generalize it, but I wouldn't necessarily say that they're the exact same in terms of how they play the run. But, is that an issue with them playing together? We'll see. Let's just watch these guys develop. Queen getting used to Pittsburgh, Wilson getting used to the NFL. We'll keep watching it.
Yep. The second part of the question that he has is if this team is going to pair them long term, will they have to have either improve two-gap scheme, acquire a big run plugging nose guard to tie up blocks and keep them clean? Look, it's going to be a thing in process specifically with Peyton Wilson to see how he develops. He obviously has the athleticism as Alex and really we both said to play out in space. These guys have got to do a better job of, and they're not really. I guess they've been two-gapping a little bit more.
I mean, it just depends. They mix it up. So I don't have a a charting or way to quantify that, but it just kind of depends on the game plan and the situation, the blocks they get, and what they decide to do.
I mean, obviously, the negative that we've seen out of both the out of Roberts and Peyton Wilson so far has been the ability to get through trash, get through big bodies, getting out on them. Going to be a huge test in this game against Baltimore. Obviously, Peyton Wilson, not expect him out there as much, but they will try to get Lyndon. What's his last name?
Linderbaum, Tyler Linderbaum.
Linderbaum out there, the second level, a couple of those guards out there as well too. So it's just going to be a process of watching Peyton Wilson continue to develop when he is on the field. And for right now, yeah, it's going to be hard to. I guess, long story short, it is kind of hard to pair those two, Queen and Wilson, together at the same time.
And it's just Roberts playing great run defense. I mean, if you care about PFF, if you don't, then tune out for the next 10 seconds. But PFF calls Roberts the best run defending linebacker in football right now. And I think the tape bears that out. And the tape, Baltimore loves to pull those guards. And who do you want taking on a pulling guard? A guy like Landon Roberts is a guy that can, not going to back down from that. Not saying that Wilson would, but just Roberts
Right.
He's just a tone setter. I mean, the first play of the game, it's a run and Roberts, fills the hole and makes a strong tackle. And so I think he's just a guy. If you watch probably the first snap that Roberts has played in his career in Pittsburgh, the physicality that he's shown just from the outset, just of like, hey, this is the kind of game it's going to be. I remember the Packers game last year. I think it was in the first place. The Packers pulled a guard and Roberts just blows it the heck up and just knocks down the puller and just destroys the whole play. He's just a tone setter. And in a game against Baltimore, you want tone setters. You want the tooth chippers, as Tomlin refers to him as.
The Vince Williams types to take on them pulling guards and stuff that damn thing right. And we've seen Landon Roberts do that, in a Steelers uniform. You're gonna have to have that kind of stuff working this Sunday.
You want a little crazy out there, and Roberts is a little crazy in all the best ways possible. So it's not to give up on Wilson or to raise big alarm bells. It's just to kind of note that what the team needs right now, Roberts can provide.
Our buddy George O'Doherty writes back in, Darren, Dave, and Alex, despite my OSU leanings, I have to admit, after yesterday's win over Washington, Tomlin was right to go with Wilson at quarterback. In addition to his youth and mobility, I thought Fields had a stronger arm. However, what I was particularly surprised to see in the Washington game was how often Wilson throws the ball either flat-footed or while backpedaling. Have you noticed this? To me, his throws looks as if he were a shortstop deep in the hole. I think this was the case on all of his TD passes yesterday, even the last TD pass, 40 yards. So I was kind of wondering if this is by imagination, or if this is a Wilson weakness or a strength. On a related OSU player comparison, at what point should I start worrying about Broderick Jones is going to fall into the Mike Adams career path? Kind of remember some enthusiasm for Adams during his rookie year, and it was not until Adams' second year that he was determined to be a bust. Having said that, it is my recollection that Dave was early critic of Mike Adams' technique. So I'm wondering if you guys see comparison with these two tackles. Obviously, I'm hoping for no similarities, but I do wonder. The thing I remember always saying about Mike Adams was he has all the tools, size, and all like that. Had all the tool. I think one of my famous quotes from Mike Adams says, "Has all the tools in the toolbox. He just needs to learn how to use them." And obviously, he never did. He got away so long because of the hulking size of being just a playing more on, just oversizing, overpowering, just unfair, because of his size and obviously the program that he played for and came out of at the time. But when he got into the NFL and started going against guys that belonged there on the other side of football, he never was able to recover from any of that. Broderick Jones sorta along, I guess you could say, got away with kind of more of a mauling game, but came out of college with a lot less experience than a Mike Adams did. The good thing is we're coming off of what is arguably or non-arguably Broderick Jones' best game as a professional, right?
Yeah, I would say so. It was a much better game, and hopefully the bye week allowed him to reset and kind of get some focus, maybe a little bit of confidence back, and we'll see. It is just one game. Want to let this whole thing play out. Some tough matchups ahead with Van Noy and Owe and others coming up here against Baltimore, and the matchups in the future. Sam Hubbard against the Bengals a little later this season, et cetera, et cetera. So you know, I'm just going to let the season play out. Obviously, he's going to start at right tackle the rest of the way, and we'll see how he progresses and how the ebbs and flows of the season go, and go from there, and then kind of evaluate things after the season wraps up.
What about the back foot comment on Russell Wilson?
Yeah, I think it's accurate. I mean, you talk about the game winner. There was a lot of pressure there, and Wilson was kind of trying to slide and buy a little extra time. He really couldn't step into that throw. I kind of felt that maybe for the other touchdown to Pickens too, but I mean, I think I'm not too concerned about that. I think a lot of that is more pressure based. I think whenever he can't step into those throws, you've seen him step into those throws and have good balance of body weight. On the Williams touchdown, there just was a bunch of pressure. They were sending a blitz, and Wilson was just trying to avoid it and buy some time to get that pass off.
What about the throw to? The one he put on Pat Freiermuth on that rub was perfect.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was a different type of throw. It wasn't the vertical throw, but I mean that was fine. So not too concerned about it.
I mean, I think when given obviously their time, I think Russell Wilson can still step into him and unleash him.
Yeah, and just can't get over that one throw to Pickens on the left sideline. That one
deep dropped ball, that right in.
Just a dime. I mean, just unreal how good of a throw that was.
John Lilly writes in, going to keep it short and sweet. Given the expectations coming into the year and the unpopular decision to switch to Rush, should Mike Tomlin be front runner for Coach of the Year if the Steelers win the division? I don't know how you can have any Coach of the Year talk right now and not include Mike Tomlin. In fact, I think he's plus 300 odds to win Coach of the Year at this point. But you obviously have, half the season left here and big games in the AFC. But I mean, you just talk about the expectations, the perceived expectations by not only us, but major media going into this thing, and the pushback, the majority pushback that Mike Tomlin got for going away from Justin Fields to Russell Wilson at this point right now. And yeah, I don't know how you have a Coach of the Year conversation, but then again, you're talking about a Steelers team that in totality every year says, ho hum, just another winning season for Mike Tomlin, nothing new there. So I do think he needs to win the division though.
Yeah, if he doesn't win the division, he's not going to win the award. And even if he does, I don't know for sure if he'll do it. It'll certainly be, on the podium to be in that conversation. It does seem like the award typically, and I mentioned this Monday, goes to that head coach that really turns a team around. I mean, who won it? D'Amico Ryans won it last year. What is the history of the award?
I'd have to look.
I think it's typically feels like more one that goes to that team that truly came out of nowhere. Not younger, but just that team that was really bad. Stefanski won it last year, actually. So, and then Dable.
Old times change, haven't they?
Yeah, for real.
Life moves fast, does it not? Stefanski's won it twice.
Right.
2020, 2023. Vrabel.
Pat Nagy won it in 2018. How about Jason Garrett 2016? Maybe it's a bad thing. Maybe you don't want to win that award. It has some bad omens to it. It's so either unless you're like super, super good. Harbaugh won it in 2019 when the Ravens were 14-2. It seems to kind of go more towards the underdog the whole way through. So it might be more of a Dan Quinn type of thing. But regardless, if Pittsburgh can win the division, who cares about who wins Coach of the Year? Pittsburgh wins the division. They won the division. Happy times are here. Who cares about the award? Tomlin, I'm sure, doesn't. But he'll be a front runner. He'll be right up there at least. And if he wins it, it'd be no surprise and would certainly be well earned.
Let's see. I don't think a Steelers coach has ever won the award.
No, Cowher won it.
Cowher won in 92.
Yeah, Tomlin's never won it. I don't believe Noel ever won it, right? Which is crazy, which is insane that Noel ever won it. But yeah, Chuck Noel, I don't think ever won Coach of the Year.
One other thing real quick I meant to get to when you said, do we have anything else to talk about? It was something Scott Kaxmar posted late last night that did you I don't think you got this in your stats of the weird or anything like that.
Mm-mm.
Steelers record in road games where opponents scored 27 or more points. Ben Roethlisberger 3-28. Russell Wilson 1-0. Mike Tomlin 2-35 before Sunday. So record in road games where opponent has scored 27 or more points. Would you have bet Ben Roethlisberger would have been better than 3-28?
Yeah, I would have bet a lot of money on that. And sorry if we trigger any Falcons fans on a 28-3 reference there. Is that Wilson 1-0? That's just in Pittsburgh. That's not his career
No,
stat
no,
line.
it's in Pittsburgh. Yeah,
Okay. So just to
as a
clarify.
member of the Steelers.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. I wonder what his record is lifetime. I'm probably better than 3-28, but
Yeah,
1-0. So yeah, Pittsburgh, typically when they allow points, they lose.
on the
And that's
road.
a,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, I think even in general, what's the
yeah.
stat when they allow like 20 or more points? I forget. I've seen some similar stats thrown around, but yeah, very quality stat of the weird, and happy that Wilson can be 1-0 in that stat.
Yeah, I meant to get to that earlier in the show. Just reminded myself to get back to it. All right, that's all the emails that we got. Let's see, we got the TV coverage map. It looks like most of the country going to see Baltimore and Pittsburgh overall. Anything else to add? Any late word from the team on Corey Trice? Doesn't look like it. So we will be back on Friday. I think we've got a Ravens beat writer tentatively scheduled. We'll cram through the tape to help preview that as good as possible. Get our week 11 picks.
Just by the way, just NFL news, Anthony Richardson is going to start for the Colts again. Joe Flacco has been benched. And so that is turned around pretty quickly in terms of reversing the decision to start Flacco.
And what, like a week and a half ago, he says he's going to, Flacco's going to be the starter the rest of the season.
Yeah, that was Shane Steichen said. So as you said just moments ago, Dave, life moves fast.
Life does move fast. Okay. You can follow me on Twitter /X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button, follow the directions that way. A lot of great film rooms and stuff. Alex has a great video, 20-something minutes on containment and all that the Steelers did on Jaden Daniels. It's worth checking out. We'll follow this throughout the weekend. We'll be back on Friday. So as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.